Hello, this is Catherine Ware, editor of the Wade annotated edition of Dorothy L. Sayers' The Man Born to be King from IVP Academic. I want to give a short introduction to my work on this book by looking at Sayers' Trinity of the Artist and then relate it to The Man Born to be King. In 1941, Sayers published a book called The Mind of the Maker, in which she articulated a clear vision of how artistic work reflects the Trinitarian pattern of the Creator, an idea she also describes in earlier letters and her play The Zeal of Thy House. Sayers writes that every work of creation is threefold. She calls these threefold steps the idea, the energy, and the power. Let's start with the idea. Now, she describes the creative idea as the book as you think it, with the end and the beginning all there together. It is the writer's realization of his own ideas and its self-awareness. It is passionless, timeless, beholding the whole work complete at once. So what does she mean here? This is like the author who comes up with a brilliant plot for a novel and says, all I have to do now is write it. Next, the creative energy. This is the book as you write it. It is a sequence in time and a struggle with the material. It is the act of incarnation, begotten of that idea, but working in time from the beginning to the end with sweat and passion. Energy is distinct from the idea, but it is the only thing that can make the idea known to itself or to others, yet it is essentially identical with the idea, consubstantial with the Father. So this is the author who puts in the day-in, day-out work of actually sitting down to write. This is where we see links to Christ as the second person of the Trinity. He was, as we say in the Creed, begotten of the Father before all ages, that is, outside of time. But then he is born in time and lived out from day to day who God is. For the artist, this step takes work, sweat, and struggle. It is the active outworking of the original idea. Finally, we have the creative power. Sayers calls this the book as you and they read it. It is the thing you give out to your readers and your readers give back to you. Sayers also calls this the meaning of the work and its response in the lively soul. More than just the physical published book, it is the means by which the energy is communicated to other readers and which produces a corresponding response in them. So, the book gets published, the album is released, the poem gets printed, and it takes on a kind of life of its own. The author can also then pick up a copy and become a reader, him or herself. But others can too. So we can say that the spirit of the idea does its work within the readers or viewers or listeners. The power of the work of art is dependent upon its reception. If we apply this then to The Man Born to be King, we can see this Trinitarian structure in action. The idea. Sayers' original idea actually was prompted by the Reverend Dr. James Welch, who is the director of religious broadcasting for the BBC. He actually commissioned the plays. He asked Sayers to write them, and we can see from her very first reply that a firm idea was already formed in her head. She wanted Christ to be an actual character in the plays, something that was controversial at the time, and she wanted her characters to speak everyday English. She also said that she wanted to take the kingship of Christ as her theme. She knew what she wanted her plays to sound like and express. Now she just had to write them. Next is the energy. This is the outworking of the idea in the actual writing process. This stage of the Trinity is the main concern of my annotated edition of her plays. I introduce each of the plays and give a background of what happened during the writing process, and I show through footnotes and side notes how she was incorporating and harmonizing the four Gospels and using her secondary sources, that is, commentaries and other Gospel adaptations. I also include a number of quotes from her letters, where James Welch or listeners write to her about particular choices. So we get to hear her defense in her own words, and this gives us a much greater understanding of all the work that went into the plays. These are the evidence of the energy, as it were, Sayers wrestling with the material to not only give a harmonized retelling of the whole life of Christ, but also to make it good drama. Finally, the creative power. When these plays were first aired in 1941-42, they were controversial and almost didn't make it on the air at all. But once people actually heard them, they loved the freshness of them, and many were changed by them. as the foreword from Dr. James Welch shows in extensive quotes from fan letters. I hope readers will come to a better understanding of the detailed work involved in creating The Man Born to Be King. Throughout this Wade annotated edition, we see Dorothy L. Sayers as a writer that is properly exercising her vocation and getting on with her proper job with all her available tools. She could not control the effect, that is, the substantial power of these plays, but she could give the energy out of the best that was in her. And when a maker does just that, it can be the creative activity that can redeem the world for both artist and audience.